Consult an advisor or conduct your own due diligence when making financial decisions. General principles discussed during this program do not constitute personal advice. This program is furnished by Dentist Advisors, a registered investment advisor. This is Dentist Money. Now, here's your host, Reese Harper.
Welcome to the Dentist Money Show, where we help dentists make smart financial decisions. I'm your host, Reese Harper, here with my trusty old co-host, Sir Ryan Isaac.
Good to be here.
It's welcome again to the studio, young gun.
Yeah, it's good to be here. We're going to start today by talking about one of, I would say I was going to say your, but I'm with you on this, our favorite subjects.
It's either mountain biking or food.
Oh, we should combine the two.
Mountain biking with food?
That'd be cool. Actually, I always mountain bike with food.
Food biking.
Yeah, food bike. Food
mountain
biking.
Fooding.
We need to do like the food truck version of a mountain bike food truck. What is that? I don't know what that is. You have a Swedish fish in your hand right now.
Yep.
So this is awesome. So have you ever, you recently over the last year, I don't know, started like tracking, measuring food, or someone else does it for you?
No.
Sends it to you.
No.
I don't know.
I mean, I track it myself in MyFitnessPal. A little bit difficult on days like today when I'm ordering a chicken salad and the restaurant's like, I don't have nutrition facts. And I'm like, how many chicken breasts did you use to put in your salad? And they're like, I think one.
Or four.
Okay.
One of the two.
It's a little tricky because
you don't know.
There's like, today I went and got myself a buffalo chicken salad from one of my favorite local organic places, your old Cubby's.
Shout out to Cubby's.
Shout out to Cubby's.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, how much chicken does normal come in? Because I needed double chicken because I was pretty hungry and I hadn't eaten. Yeah. It was 3 o'clock and I hadn't had lunch. And so he said, well, I'll put 2 chicken breasts in if you want. I said, well, how big are the chicken breasts? Because I kind of need to be
how many ounces is this? What are we talking about?
We're talking like a 6 ounce.
Is this like steroid chicken breasts I get from Costco that are like 10-ounce chicken breasts that I know don't exist in the wild naturally?
This is not my primitive forefathers chicken.
What is this?
Like, what kind am I dealing with? And, you just don't know. So you kind of get a guess. It makes it a little harder when you're just guessing at it.
You're just taking a guess. So I saw this chart. I'm going to have to describe it. But I saw this chart. Someone had just posted this on. They were making the argument that just measuring food by volume isn't accurate enough. And you have to measure it by weight. So, for example, take out like a normal tablespoon out of the old kitchen drawer, and you get the peanut butter jar. Well, in your house, you have peanut butter allergies, so you don't do the peanut butter jar.
Almond butter or sun butter.
Okay.
Sunflower seed.
You dip the spoon, and you pull that thing out. If you're starving, you're going a little overboard on that spoon size. Yeah. But you're still calling it a tablespoon.
Yeah, I get that.
So this chart, it had 3 different foods. It had a half cup of oats, had a tablespoon of peanut butter, and it had a half cup of avocado. And it showed the difference and then they had like the actual sizes. Like 1 spoon was they're both tablespoons, but 1 spoon was like a generous scooping. Ice cream could be the same way. I don't know. Yeah. You're an ice cream guy. Yeah. You like ice cream, right? But like one's a generous scooping, and then one's the actual weighed measurement of what it's.
What's a weighed?
Like by weight in grams.
Oh, weight. I thought you said Wade. I was like, who's Wade and where did he come into this picture?
D-Wade.
Go Heat.
Okay.
Go Miami.
Is it still going? Okay. So, and it was interesting because like in this peanut butter example, they're both tablespoons, but one of them's a generous helping. It's 43 grams. It's 260 calories. And the one that was actually measured to be a serving size, also on a tablespoon, was 16 grams.
So 43 compared to 16?
And and 94 calories.
As opposed to 260.
So the pictures look and they looked similar. One's like, well, you can tell there's a little extra, but it's the same spoon. Yeah. One's a little fuller.
Yeah.
But one is like, and I mean that's a massive difference. The oats was the same thing. It's like one pile.
I was the same thing this morning. I was making because I try to make this like, my neighbor has this little organic what do you call it? Like
or organic
garden.
Okay.
A garden. Those things that we used to have back in the day.
I was going to say dispensary.
So I went over there and she gave me some Swiss chard, which I was kind of like wanting to have.
Is that the purple
Swiss
one?
chard's really good. No, it's like just green and white.
It's green.
It's like anyway. And I made myself a smoothie this morning only out of Swiss chard and unsweetened almond milk.
Okay.
And because I wanted to get myself
that's hearty and that is bitter to the core.
Yeah, it was intense.
Whoa.
And so I blended it. I probably had now see, you don't really know what you just ate because I go into my Fitness Pal to like type the stuff in.
So I don't know.
And it's like Swiss chard in cups.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not how it came.
Yeah.
It comes in a giant leaf that's too big for me to do anything with.
Size of my head.
And I just throw it in the blender and I blend it. And then, everything's like in cups.
Yes.
I'm like, I don't know how to measure it in cups.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I barely know how to measure. I got to like put it on a scale to measure it in grams.
Exactly.
So if you want to get in precise, I laid it on a scale.
And weight is the only way to actually measure food.
Yeah, is
it? Yeah.
I mean, I just kind of intuitively assumed that because it was the only way I could. You can't fit stuff in imprecise containers.
No, and it's crazy too because I've done this before. I've taken like just a measuring cup, like one cup, little plastic ones out of the kitchen, and I'll just go scoop some oats out of it. And be like, yeah, that'd be a cup of oats.
Okay.
And then I'll measure like what I think would be a cup of oats, and then I'll actually take the serving of a cup of oats in grams. And it's like dramatically different.
Yeah,
it's pretty different.
They're different.
So
anyway, what's the point of this whole?
What's the dang point of this whole thing? Is I read we're going to talk about something else about net worth, but I read this like it was an article about net worth and what do people consider like actual wealth, like what number is wealthy, and it's just like some vague measurements, and that just reminded me of that, of like how measuring food is so similar. It's kind of like this vague, like, yeah, it seems like a cup. And you're like, so, yeah, you just doubled your calories and you don't even know it, but you think you were dead on.
So today's podcast is, what we're going to talk about is, would you say, what is a lot of money? Like what? That's really the question here, right?
So the title, it was a Bloomberg article, and when did this come out? This is pretty recent, May 2019. The title is, How Much Money Do You Need to Be Wealthy in America?
Yeah.
And then it was posted in a dental Facebook forum too, and some cool discussion on this. We'll just start with that title. If you have some, let's not skip too fast ahead. How much money do you need to be wealthy in America? I might have already told you some of these numbers.
I haven't heard any of them. Okay. I did see that this article is getting spread around, but I haven't read it.
So what would you think that? And there was just like a big survey, big study that was done
and
it was done by the way, let's see, because it's pretty legitimate. It was done by Schwab.
So
annual survey.
So in America,
what it take to be considered
since I'm like
rich?
I've got a few. I'm more informed than the average person, but
humble brag.
I would on this topic.
It's true.
It's not a humble brag.
It's true.
That's
just speaking truth.
Objective
It's the
truth.
You spend 90 hours a week doing it.
It's you
70.
The listeners are also more objectively good at dentistry than I am.
Yes, they are.
So what I would say though is, if you take the average wage of a person in the United States and say that's close to $60,000, I would say for that person to feel wealthy, $60,000 of income for someone to feel wealthy, I think that person would feel wealthy probably at any time they had more than $1 million. That person would feel wealthy, maybe like $1.4 million to $1.4 million.
Yeah,
that's what I would guess. I haven't read the article.
Okay.
Now, second thing I would say though is, that person's wrong. Really, for them to be like wealthy, it would be more like maybe $1.9 million to $2 million at a $60,000.
Yeah,
like that'd be like, you're really actually pretty wealthy.
Yeah, like you could. Yeah.
And the reason I'm doing that math is I'm just taking someone's average annual income and I'm multiplying it by some factor. I multiply it by 20 in one case and by 30 in another case, and those are pretty good barometers.
Because if you're making 60, you're probably spending 40, 45, right? I mean, in just average family, average living. And
so I think if you had $1 million and you're making 60,000, you're going to feel like that's a lot of, that is wealthy for you. Now, and that's where I would guess, like if I was going to say for America, then I would have to use the average income as the place I would start. And I'd say, that's about, but I bet like for a lot of people who make more than the average person, they're not going to relate to that number because that's not a number that everyone should be okay with.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What did you
Well, so that 1.1 million was the what did they call it? They called it like the doing okay number. What was their exact? I thought this was kind of funny. To be deemed merely financially comfortable is 1.1 million. That was out of the survey. So people said 1.1, you're like comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay. So to be wealthy, to be considered wealthy is 2.3 million.
Yeah.
Which the study said is more than 20 times the actual median net worth of U.S. households. But $2.3 million.
More than 20 times the median net worth?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so median net worth.
So they're saying like a 20 TT basically. More than a 20 TT would be a for the average U.S. household, which is kind of interesting. That's more than 20.
I wonder what they used as their average income number for the study. That's where I would kind of go. So a lot of times they use different income numbers for, like, are they surveying the average person?
Yes,
Yeah.
And they segmented across age groups too, which was further kind of interesting. But the 2.3 was the number. So I read this, and this is what I want to talk about. I kind of want to break this up into a few different segments today, because I read this and it just says the amount of people, or the amount that people said it took to be considered rich, averaged out to $2.3 million. And what the first thing I thought about is this concept of that it took $2.3 million to be wealthy. Like, what does that even mean? Like, if you had a $2.2 million house that was paid off in a $100,000 IRA, is that the same as $2.3 million in an IRA?
Yeah.
And no house?
Yeah, I don't know if people probably aren't saying that's the net worth I need. I bet they're saying that's the pile of money I would like.
That's just the number. So one of my first thoughts here then that we could talk about in kind of respect and like calculating, like, what's my magic number? Because that's what we wanted to get at. That's what we wanted to talk about today. Mm-hmm. This concept of like, what's this magic number?
Because the magic number is specific to the individual.
Yeah.
That's why I was struggling to know, what are we saying? I would give you a different answer based on each person. Yeah. Right. And because it's really relative to their.
How do you think most people normally do that when you ask? Like, so what was interesting in that forum that posted this too, where I saw this, was everyone was kind of like putting in what they thought their number was, which were really.
And what did it range from?
Usually a couple million to like 5 million was so common, and it's funny because I've asked that question probably hundreds of times over the last decade.
Yeah.
Like, what number do you think you need to hit one day? Just because it's a really interesting thing to ask people.
Yeah.
And it's always a round number, and it's always $5 million. It's always $5 million.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with any multiple of spending or income or.
Yeah.
It's always just like, that's pretty big and it's round.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, how do you think most people normally do that when they're thinking like, what's the number?
Well, it's the same way people, like I was doing some pricing research in this last week on, like, how do people know what to pay for things? Yeah. Because for the new app that we're building, I'm trying to understand like I know what we need to make to be like sustainable, the app cost really, and those are, the more people are willing to pay, the more features you can build essentially. Like, the less people are willing to pay, the less features you can build. And so I'm trying to understand, what do people assume like a financial planning app would cost?
Yeah.
And and
what's behind it?
They always reference other things. So they'll reference like YNAB, or they'll reference Mint, or they'll reference Personal Capital, or they'll reference Quicken, what they pay for their annual Quicken membership, or they'll reference sometimes the wrong thing like QuickBooks.
Or Netflix.
And they'll be like, well, I pay this for Netflix. So I'm like, I don't know why you're referencing that, but like I have
everyone pays a monthly fee for Netflix, and it seems reasonable.
Yeah, it seems like, well, I pay for my Fitness Pal, I pay $3 a month. So for a financial planning app, I don't know.
Yeah.
So, and I think a lot of times when it comes to wealth management, we do the same thing. When we think about our number, we're actually referencing some other thing that is
it's an anchoring
point, and I know now that the point that the median household cost, like the cost of a home in the United States, continues to escalate quite a bit, and that price becomes like a new anchor. I think I think at some point there was probably like this idea that I'm a millionaire, that $1 million was a lot of money until like 1990 or 1985.
Oh,
you know.
Well, even the sound of that, like, he's a millionaire.
Yeah.
She's a millionaire. She's worth $1 million.
Yeah. But like, but no one really went to 2 or to 3 or some kind of more new. They just kind of thought, I think, I'll hedge and go higher.
Yeah.
And I think 5 million is the next stop after 1 million.
It for some reason is.
Yeah, it's like
there is no station 2, 3,
there
and 4.
Isn't.
Next up.
It's not that precise for people, and unfortunately, that number is too much for for most
we'll give some context
people
on that.
to accumulate.
If you had $5 million to spend, like spendable net worth, because I want to talk about this in a few minutes. I want to talk about the difference of, keep calling it $5 million that's sitting in different assets, because that makes a massive difference in how much is liquid versus not liquid, right? But give some context. If I've got $15 million in, let's just say it's an account I can spend, or $5 million in an account I can spend out of, what's my, like, what could I draw indefinitely forever? Or, you know, what could I spend and run out in 20 years? Or
I'd feel you'd be between. I would feel safe saying $16,000 a month. Like you could do that.
Yeah.
Which coincidentally is what a lot of dentists are used to spending. So $5 million.
Yeah, it's like our average.
Yeah, it's probably not like a bad number for most people.
Yeah. So we saw.
But but I think it could range depending on how long you want it to last.
So $16,000 a month.
But you would never run out of money.
But you'd never run out of that $5 million.
But you know, most people won't be able to accumulate at that level during their working career. For the average dentist will struggle to do that.
Yeah.
You know, and so
you might be closer to 2 to 3 when someone's like all said and done with home equity, selling maybe a building, a practice, accumulation
you
of
could
assets.
also that same $16,000 a month, you could probably accumulate, you know, in the threes, like $3 million, $3.5 million range.
But it would be gone by the time
you'd probably spend it all, and you'd have to retire kind of at a normal age of 60 to 65.
Okay.
You know,
so maybe push workout as an associate a day or two.
That's
a week.
Big difference between, like, let's say you could be on the low end, you could be 3.2 to 3.3, and the high end could be 5.5 if that was your desired spending amount per month that you wanted.
But this is why it's just funny to talk about these numbers, because that makes a massive difference in lifestyle. Because if we're just talking about the average dentist, and there's this range between, I got to save between $3 and $5 million. The 3 number, let's say that's attainable while also kind of living a good lifestyle and working a normal life, career span, you know, where the other one is like more sacrifice. It's less spending. It might even be longer working just because you got to accumulate more money.
Yeah. I mean, if you're trying to accumulate $5 million in net worth, you know, if you're trying to, or portfolio value, if you're not wanting to like include your house in that, if you're trying to accumulate $5 million, you know, and you've got, let's say you know, start at age 35, you know, as a point where you're kind of done and ready to dig in, you know, if you got to work, even if you worked clear to 65, you're still going to have to grow your net worth at 150, 160,000 a year. And for people that make 200 to 250,000, that might not be realistic, you know, for people to accumulate that much, but it might be realistic for them to accumulate, you know, 3.2 to 3.5.
And just know that by the time I'm in my like late 80s or 90s, it's probably be close to spent. And
I mean, you're only going to grow your net worth to as a certain ratio of your. I mean, just backing up what we've talked about before, I really think it's important to just slow down and kind of paint the picture of lifetime income. You know, because everyone's going to have a certain amount of earnings throughout their life, and that's just going to be the money you make every year multiplied by the number of years that you work.
Yep.
So someone who earns $200,000 for 30 years makes $6 million, and someone who earns $300,000 for 30 years makes $9 million. Someone who earns $150,000 a year for 30 years only makes $4.5 million, right? And so these
very different opportunities.
You have different opportunities to go and pursue, but you're also not used to the same lifestyle. You're used to your own lifestyle at your own income level, so you don't have to be stressed out about like, well, I should have got more or less, you know.
Yeah, because you're spending 14, but the higher earner is spending like 40 a month.
Yeah, or maybe 21 and you're spending 12, or someone's spending 19 and you're at 9. And because you're used to that, because that's a ratio of your income that you're kind of just used to. So I don't think people need to feel really intimidated, but they do need to be realistic about what's possible. And not all people are going to need an arbitrary $5 million number. They're going to need a precise, you know, range that goes somewhere between 20 times what you spend in a year and maybe as high as 35 to 40 times what you spend in a year if you want to
preserve and leave stuff behind.
Yeah, leave all your portfolio and just live on the interest. You'd need 35 to 40 times, you know, or 30 to 35 minimum, you know, and of course the rates of return that you earn can affect how long your portfolio lasts. But if we're just kind of assuming kind of normal averages,
standard stuff,
then that's where I think people can get a better sense for what they're going to accumulate to. And I think when we did these usability studies last week in the app on trying to figure out how we do a retirement calculator. We're trying to figure out the right way to show someone a retirement calculator and have them come up with their own magic.
Yeah, paint
number.
the picture a little bit here, because this is kind of like the interface that someone's looking at as you're like hearing them talk through these ranges, because it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so we sit down, we plug someone into the computer, and we bring up the iPhone on the screen, and we have them take their mouse as if it's their finger, and they click around and do some things, and we try to learn what they're going through. And a couple of things that I learned that were really interesting were kind of when we get to like a retirement calculator, what is it that people want to know?
Yeah.
You know, and there were some things that I learned where I'm just like, man, I didn't realize that was such a important issue, because knowing what I know in my head, sometimes I skip over things that other people just don't skip over.
Yeah.
You know, that are, and I wasn't doing the interviews. I'm just observing, because I don't want people to be like assuming that.
Well, you'll force people to.
They might say nicer things about
You'll
the
lead
app,
them with your tricky questions.
Well, I think that they'll be
skills.
nicer to me than they would be to Todd Reynolds, who's a
shout out to the design genius
UX designer.
Yeah.
He says
they'll be mean to Todd because they don't know Todd.
Well, they'll just be direct with him.
Yeah.
He's like, because Todd, they're just like, I don't like that, or
yeah.
I don't. But it's been really positive so far. Like, haven't had like a lot of negatives. In fact, I get texts like every day, like, I can't wait for this. I'm like, can you get it? Can you get it out to me? And I'm like, dude, there's only like 4 of us working on this. Like it's hard to speed this up. I'm sorry. Now I know why. I'm not going to complain about technology to people as much anymore.
Because how hard it is to build and maintain
really
and invent the right stuff.
So we put this retirement calculator up in front of them, and the first one I designed had way too many
inputs,
sliders.
Yeah.
It made them pick their spending. It made them pick the return that they were going to earn.
When you mean sliders, like you put your finger on this little thing and like slide it to like higher spending or lower spending.
Yeah,
like left and right.
You can kind of move left to right on the phone, and you can go. Well, my personal spending's at $4,000 a month, and I drag to the right, and it goes to 9.
Yeah.
Go back and forth, and and that was good. Personal spending was a really
people wanted
critical
it.
variable.
Yeah.
And they wanted to be able to move that to decide how big their net worth was going to be, and then. They also would say things like, "Well, what depends on what my returns are," and I want to know like how much I need to get in return to kind of get retired as fast as possible, and that is kind of a common request. It's like how I want to know like what I got to do and how fast I can get it done.
Yeah.
To get there, and there's not a lot you can do, unfortunately, about like if the calculator says if you spend half what you're spending right now and earn a return that's really high and you can be done really early, like even though people they like to toy with the numbers to get it to that point.
Yeah.
I don't think it like was that motivating or
sells blog posts.
That doable.
Clicks. Yeah.
Because it's like, well, I can't cut my spending in half. And
I can't get like an 18%
annual
guarantee.
Get like a 12% annual fixed return with no variance at all.
No downside.
And so then we changed the app to kind of create a really, really simple framework to just, let's start before we project things out. Let's just decide what your magic number needs to be. Mm-hmm. And all you have to know is what you're spending right now on a monthly basis to live on, and kind of think about whether that income would be a good income for you to live on later.
And I want to slow you down a little bit too, because you're talking about like specific jobs that need to get done for people, and so you're talking about one huge job, which is figuring out what is that number going to be, which is going to always be a reflection of what is the number today. The number in the future is a reflection of what's happening today. So you got to know that, and you have to know how it trends and changes over time.
Yes, and that's a hard job, and that's a really good conversation for you to have with your financial advisor on a regular basis. Is my income, or is the way I'm spending right now, is that likely, is that good for my income level, and is that sustainable? Will I be okay? Like, am I spending too much, too little? This is a good conversation to have. It's a little bit scary to have that conversation because no one wants to be like, it's a painful thing. Like, no one wants to be told they're spending too much and you got to like change everything, and everyone wants to just be like, it's okay, right?
It's fine. It's
don't talk to me about it.
I can do this.
It's like diet and food. Like, you don't really want to like, like you shouldn't go eat a burger again.
Again for the 4th time today.
Yeah, but you're like,
and then they're double patties every time.
I don't care. Like, I'll take the double. Like when I'm at Shake Shack and I'm in the airport.
But you have to Shake Shack.
And they're like, do you want a single or a double patty? I'm like,
you're like, I'm at Shake Shack. What do you think I'm going to do?
I don't want to have to pick that.
What is this, Wendy's? This isn't on every corner.
I like to go with the single, but it's because I like the vegetables.
Good for you.
But for the most part, like there's not quite enough meat in the single.
No, there's not.
Anyway, so
that's one massive variable, huge job.
Spending.
Yeah.
But I just feel like the spending calculation that people go through, that's kind of your primary variable. The second thing that we ended up doing was just saying, look, there's this thing called the TT score. And that, for those of you who have been listening for a while, all that is we have to teach you something about retirement planning that you probably don't already know. And there was a lot of things we could have taught you about. We could teach you about withdrawal rate, which was really confusing, and no one really understood that.
Yeah. They just jacked
withdrawal
that thing
rate
up.
is the percentage that you can pull from your portfolio that makes it be a reasonable withdrawal. And that is essentially the same thing as saying a TT score, but in a different way.
Yeah.
So a TT score measures your net worth divided by your annual spending, and it kind of shows you a number. And when that number is a 20, that means you could last for about 20 years if none of your investments grew at all. And if it's a 30, it means you could last for 30 years if none of your investments grew at all. But as we all know, your investments will grow. And when you're at a 20, there's a certain return that you could hit that would make you go into what we call beast mode or infinity mode.
Okay.
And
I didn't know we called it that. This is new.
I had to come.
Can you unlock that on the app? There's okay.
You just hit infinity mode. And basically what that means
it's like
is
the Tesla of financial planning apps.
You have a big enough portfolio now to where you're hitting a return now that like makes you go on forever.
That's
like
beast mode.
The Avengers. That is infinity
alert.
Mode or something. I don't know if beast mode's the right word, but I liked it anyway. So infinity mode essentially means there's a different return you're going to have to get.
Yeah.
At a 20 TT score, right?
To maintain.
If you have a net worth that's 20 times your annual spending, you're going to need a higher return to go into infinity mode than if you had a 30. If you're at a 30 TT score, you essentially have a bigger chunk of wealth. And so you can get a lower return and still go into infinity mode there. And so
there should be like a chime for unlocking infinity. Like you hit in the app. It's like chime.
I like infinity mode. It just makes sense to people. And I'll give Todd that credit for that.
Okay.
He's like one day he's just like, isn't it kind of like infinity mode?
Yeah.
He's a designer that doesn't have a strong financial background, and as we were going through this,
and he loves video games.
He's just like,
it's from the 80s.
This infinity mode concept makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I think the important thing to remember when you look at your retirement projection or this article, any of the stuff we've been reviewing today, is that the bigger that your net worth is over your spending, relative to your spending. So
those are the two.
$3 million divided by 100,000 is a 30, but $2 million divided by 100,000 is a 20. So you want to make sure that you're at a higher multiple of your spending to go into infinity mode. And everyone's going to go. Some people, you don't have to go into an infinity mode. Okay?
Yeah, well, you don't. Yeah, a lot of people don't care if they leave money behind.
Like,
that's not a primary objective.
Think about Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay, I mean, I loved it. Let's do it.
What's the name of the main character? I'm already forgot.
That's
so
Quill.
He goes into. He's not gonna go into infinity mode. He doesn't care. He just he's living like
it's for the moment
in the
mode.
moment
Yeah,
mode.
Yeah.
Like he
Today
wants to
mode.
live in the 1980s with the Walkman. He likes life that way.
Yeah, that's a good life.
And then some people are like Tony Stark's like obsessed with infinity mode.
Yeah.
Like the fact that he's gonna die, like it really bothered him, and it was like death was like this thing, and so like I just think that all of us kind of like ultimately got to reconcile. Like we don't have to go into an infinity mode to be good with our life or our money, but that's a big difference between spend down mode. Like a terminal portfolio where you're predicting the
it'll be gone at some point.
end point.
Yeah.
I just don't like retirement calculators. Like this is the thing where we got to, like, everyone was going, well, what age am I going to retire?
I know.
What age am I going to die?
When am I going to die?
And when,
like, if we could build that app.
what's my inflation going to be? What are my returns going to be? I'm like, you don't know any of that. Like, you don't know when you're going to die, and you don't know when you're going to retire. All you know is that at a 20 multiple of your spending, like, that's probably, you're probably going to definitely run out of money at some point. You just don't know exactly.
So be an associate to your late 60s if you're shooting and aiming at a 20 multiple.
Yeah, and I just
Probably
feel like it's a little
longer.
bit like not honest and not transparent to tell people, like, well, you're fine with a 95% security rating. And like all these financial planning tools, they create these probability analysis that like tell you where, what percentage of probability you have at not outliving your money. And it's like, it's either like something or 95. They never can have like 100, right?
Yeah.
But like, you get to this 95% probability and it's like, you're great based on these 30 variables. And I'm just like,
that's the problem, because it's based on inputs that you put in there based on a static life that never has surprises. I mean, how many of our clients that are in retirement mode call out of the blue and they're like, you know what? We're just going to do it. We're going to do that like month-long European trip. We're doing it. We've thought about it. We're still in good health. We're doing it. And that wasn't in the plan. No. That wasn't part of the variable in the Monte Carlo calculation software printout.
But if I looked at that client before they were going to retire and they were at a 20 TT score, I would look them in the eye and be like, this is fine.
But we're coming after home equity at some point.
We're going to have to probably tap into the house equity.
And you're not leaving it behind.
Yeah, and there's not going to be a lot of inheritance here for the greats.
But enjoy it.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of more, more realistic of an expectation that you should have.
What I like on this interface, kind of hard to describe it though. So if you're looking at your phone and this slider, which is like, am I going to have a lot where there's a lot left over? Am I going to infinity mode, or is it going to be like I'm squeaking by and it's going to run out? Run out mode's on the left. The slider slides to the right to infinity mode. Yeah. And I like how it changes from like red, dark red, to like orange to green. Yeah. Because it kind of like, it's that connotation where it's like, okay, if I'm towards the left and I'm at a 20 TT and I'm kind of like I'm going to spend this thing down, I'm in this like red zone here. Yep. Which is the opposite of a red zone in football.
But you don't want to. You don't want to be in the red zone in the app.
In the app, don't be in the red zone.
So hopefully this helps people kind of see the. I think ultimately, the important thing here is that your financial advisor needs to be constantly looking at your personal spending and looking at your net worth growth in order to give you a proper expectation for the right point in time when work is optional for you, and what big changes you should be making to either the value of your practice, the sell date of the practice, whether there should be an associate or not, whether expansion is needed or whether you can keep going at the status quo the way you're going now. It's just important to have a really firm handle on what your personal number is. You got to know your magic number. And that is not just one input. Yeah,
it's not. And so I guess we can wrap things up with the other thought that I had is when people say this number, like 2.3 is the magic number. That's how to be wealthy. Like it makes a huge difference on where that 2.3 is sitting. Yeah. Which is if you go to our website, for those of you who have listened for a while, we have this elements table, and the bottom row is 5 elements, and that tracks where your net worth is located. How much is liquid, how much is sitting in real estate versus a business or 401ks. And like the distribution of that will make a big difference too in retirement. And that's what's interesting about a study like this. If you just ask the average person what's wealthy, it's $2.3 million or it's $5 million. But like if most of that's in a house, or that's different than if most of it's sitting in a brokerage account. Well, or it's in a business you still have to sell one day that's still like operating and fluctuating, or...
Yeah, I mean it's very different if it's sitting in a business. If it's sitting in a house or retirement accounts or liquid assets or investments, I mean, a rational person would treat all those things the same and just be like, it's all my net worth, and
I'll just use it when
I need to in the most tax efficient way.
Right.
But a lot of people just they have a home that they want to pay off free and clear and then never use. that money ever again, and they don't want to borrow against their house. And so it creates, you kind of eliminate that portion from your net worth.
Yeah, you might have had 3, but now like 700 is gone.
Yeah, and to me, that's just like a really important thing to pause and kind of note. If you're the type of person that really wants to pay off a house free and clear and own it forever, that is a big part of your net worth that you're basically just like saying is gone. Like, I'm never going to be able to use that again for my living. You know, it will reduce your monthly housing cost, you know, by whatever rent would be in your neighborhood. But I mean, it's a big pile of money that you have sitting there that's never going to grow at all. And for a lot of people, that's just, it's not realistic to think that they'll never need that money, especially if they're in an expensive city where their housing costs are high.
Yeah. Or remodeling. Like how many clients have you talked to that have a paid off mortgage? They're in or near retirement, but they're like, this thing needs like a $200,000 overhaul now. Like we're going to stay here, but like we have
or way more, right?
Yeah.
Way more expensive too.
We got to put like the master on the main so we can stick around and move a laundry room, and like the patio's leaking.
Yeah. And so I think you've really just got to make sure that you're conscious about which assets you're going to be able to use for retirement income and which ones you're not going to be able to use.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's like, you know, we've mentioned a few of the main jobs that need to be done, and these aren't static jobs. These aren't like a measure at once and then that's just like what it is. I mean, these are like year to year, they change, they fluctuate, and you have to know how they're trending. But one of them's spending, one of them's like this total net worth number. But the other one is, how is your net worth split up in all these assets? Where is your net worth located, and how are those trending? I was just having this conversation with a client this week we were just emailing about this, and he's saying, you know, I noticed that X% of my net worth is sitting in real estate, and this is in my business, and this is liquid, and this is 401k, and you know, that makes a difference on like where he'll get money from in the future. Yeah. And it made a difference to him on how he wanted to accumulate in the future too. It made him stop and go, yeah, I haven't like looked at this way before. I'd kind of like to push the brakes on like more real estate, and I just want to get more liquid before I kind of get to this final phase of my career.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're talking about a lot of different jobs here. If we had to summarize today's conversation around jobs, it'd be like track your net worth, the number and the progress and the speed at which it's growing really accurately. We'd say, you know, you have to track how your net worth is diversified among real estate, liquid assets, retirement assets, and business equity. We'd also probably say track your personal spending is a job we've talked about today, and really determine what the monthly nut is that is going to be driving your retirement assumption, and then make sure that you're looking at this projection and making the right business decisions strategically today to maximize the value of your business, but not overinvest in it in a way that takes that essentially starts lowering your net worth return. And there is a point down the road when, once you know what your number really needs to be, like there's a limited amount of resources that you should continue to give to your business, or in some cases you need to give more because your value is just not there, and that's the only place you're going to be able to reach your goals from. Yeah. And so these are a lot of jobs going on in this net worth area, but like a really critical part of financial planning for sure.
Yep. I was going to leave us with it was a tweet from James Clear, who's the author, writes a lot about like behavioral psychology and behavioral finance. He sent this tweet a while ago. I've always saved this, about what real wealth is. He says real wealth is not about money, but real wealth is the following. I'd be curious what you think. One of them is not having to go to meetings. I don't know if you'd agree with that or not. Not having to spend time with jerks, not being locked into status games, not feeling like you have to say yes, and not worrying about others claiming your time and energy. That's what he said real worth. So we started with real wealth being a defined number, and that's what James Clear said real wealth is.
No,
I like the don't spend your time with jerks.
Yeah, I think that one's very good. I think everyone has like a different definition, right? Isn't that kind of the point here? Yeah. Like I think some of those things you relate to, some I do, some I don't. Yeah. You know, I think everyone's definition is probably more than just a number. Yep. I mean, that's I would agree with that. All right, well, thanks everyone for listening. We'd encourage you to do two things. Number one, join our Facebook group. We have a lot of great discussions and polls, and we pull
topics for the podcast from your questions in there. So that's the Dentist Advisors. What's it called on Facebook? Dentist Advisors Discussion Group. Pretty straightforward title.
Yeah.
You can get there by going to dentistadvisors.com/group or contact us. Go to our website, dentistadvisors.com, schedule an appointment with one of our advisors, have a chat about your situation, your number, your spending, where you're headed. You can go to our website, click on the big button that says book free consultation, or call us at 833-DDS-PLAN.
Carry on. Thanks again for listening, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed the show.